comprehensive, formal, and automated analysis of the EDHOC protocol that I wrote together with Charlie Jacomme, Elise Klein, and Steve Kremer. Let's start right into it. So what is the EDHOC protocol? And first, a bit of context. So the IETF is currently standardizing a new lake for lightweight authentication key exchange protocol. It's meant to be lightweight to work for IoT, and the IETF called in October 2021 for a formal analysis of their 12th draft of the EDHOC protocol. That's why we come into play. That's where we come into play. Now, let's talk about the EDHOC protocol. It's a variant of a Maïwenn Diffie-Hellman for authentication protocol that has 4 methods that combine signature key and long-term Diffie-Hellman key, meaning a user can choose to authenticate either a signature key or a long-term Diffie-Hellman key. The protocol can be completed in 3 messages with an optional 4th one for more security. The author of the Lake group also provided a CAM-based version for post-quantum security. Now, you can see a graphic of a simplified version of the protocol. So just to give you an idea of how it works, here we have the method 0, meaning that both the initiator and the responder wants to authenticate a signature key. So the protocol starts with the initiator sending an ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key, the responder responding with his own ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key, and the station key computed with both these ephemeral Diffie-Hellman keys. With this station key, he encrypts his identity and a signature over his signature key, his public key. That is the thing he wants to authenticate. And the last step of the protocol is the initiator responding with an encryption of his own identity and a signature over his public key. Now we have seen the protocol, let's talk about the security claims that were made about it. So as you can see on the screen, there were plenty of them, starting with authentication, of course, it's an authentication protocol. So the authentication properties are on data, implicit key authentication, and there was also other categories such as confidentiality. So the message should not be read in plain text by an attacker spying on the network. There were also identity protection claims and some other diverse claims such as non-repudiation and post-quantum security, as I told you. So these are many properties that are meant to hold even in the cases where the key are compromised. So now we have the protocol, we have the security that is the security claims that the protocol is supposed to meet. Let's see what we can do with that. So we choose to work in a symbolic model, symbolic verification. That is a way to describe protocols using transition system between protocol states. The security properties that we want to prove are stated on execution traces of the protocol written in first-order logic. And the adversary we consider is usually modeled using the Leviau model. The big advantage of using symbolic verification is that it gives mathematically sound proofs of the security properties of the protocol. So we can have strong confidence in the results that we give. Now, we most especially use the SAPIC Plus platform, which is a state-of-the-art tool that combines 3 known tools in the protocol verification world. The first one is PROVERIF, which has the big advantage of giving us fast proof, but has a loose Diffie-Hellman model. SAPIC Plus also supports TAMARIN prover, who is longer to run, but gives more precise proofs, and DEEPSEC, which give equivalence properties, so it's useful for anonymity, but works in bounded number of sessions, as opposed to PROVERIF and TAMARIN prover, who works in unbounded number of sessions. The big advantage of SAPIC Plus is that you can write a model in one language, applied PyCalculus, and then SAPIC Plus will take upon itself to translate this model for PROVERIF, TAMARIN, and DEEPSEC. So it gives us great maintainability and makes us gain a lot of time. Now, what did we put in our model? The first thing we consider is that we put the 4 methods that are supported by the protocol, and they are executable in parallel, which means that we can have an infinite number of initiator and responder. So one individual can play both of the roles. and they can choose to authenticate using either of 4 methods. We also include a trust on first use paradigm, and we modeled many key compromise scenarios because we want the result we give to be the more reliable as we can. We also added the alternate model with the K-based variant for more completion. Now, of course, our model has limitations. So, for example, we have no fine-grained modeling of the cipher suite negotiation that happened at the very beginning of the protocol. We also have no modeling of the key update mechanism that happens during the protocol. And finally, we have no model of the fourth optional message. So why did we make these choices? Well, the model that we wrote was already quite big, and so we preferred to keep some limitation but have results rather than struggle with a too big model that we could not handle for now. Now, let's talk about the results we got. So in this table, on the left, you can see the properties that we worked on, so confidentiality, transcript authentication, and so on. And on the right, you can see the result given the different threat model that we had. So on the first column, you have the basic model, so the DeLevio adversary. And as we go forward, we gave more possibility to the adversary. For example, weakening the Diffie-Hellman model by allowing the adversary to force the user to use a low-order key, a low-order group for the Diffie-Hellman key. We also leaked some session keys, we weakened the hash, and so on. So as you can see, as we give the adversary more possibilities, some attacks start to appear. And the last column is a bit on the side because it's the KEM variant, so it's a bit different. If you want more detail on this table, you can look at the paper. Now, I want to give you an insight of what kind of attack can be found using SAPIC+. In this case, it's an attack we found on the EDHOC protocol that relies on an impersonation attack. So the threat model is that the device we consider has access to a TEE, Trusted Execution Environment, where the long-term key of the user is stored. However, all the other keys, the ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key and the session key, are stored in the device, not in the TEE, so they can be compromised by the adversary at some point in the execution. Now, the attack looks like that. The initiator will start an honest session with the attacker, who will leak the ephemeral Diffie-Hellman key of the attacker, and then start a session with the responder. At this point, the initiator does not know that the attacker is starting a session with the responder. Then, as you can see, the attacker continues the session as usual with the initiator. The initiator will compute a session key that is based on his credential and the responder credentials. And at the end, the attacker will leak the session key, which will allow him to forge a last message impersonating the initiator. So the main concern is in the method 1, 2, and 3, so the method where a Diffie-Hellman long-term key is used. The session key is actually the MAC key, and it's sufficient for impersonation, and it does not rely on long-term secrets that are hidden in the TE. So the safety of all authentication operations are insufficient to ensure authentication. That's a big deal. So we came up with a mitigation, which is adding an additional master secret derivation for the session key that will solve this issue. Now, a higher level feedback of the things we did. So, as you may remember of the table, in the basic model, the protocol provides almost all expected security properties. So that's a good news. But thanks to the further studies that we did by leaking keys and enhancing the adversary model, we were able to show that simple changes and clarification in the draft may avoid potential misuse of the existing design in the future. It will strengthen the TE implementation, and it will overall improve the future resilience of the protocol. So discussions were made with the IETF group for improvements. To conclude, we conducted an in-depth study of the Lake EDHOC protocol using state-of-the-art tools and models that allowed us to detect a number of weaknesses that I did not all mention in the talk, but we can talk about it later, and that led to discussion with the IETF working group. The weaknesses that we came up with were acknowledged, and the mitigation were added in the draft. So it led to 4 pull requests, and the other thing we brought to their attention were included in the draft 14 released after our discussion in May 2022. For the future, we want to improve and deepen our analysis, so adding the key updates, the false messages, and so on, all the limitations that I talked to you about. But we also want to keep the model up to date with the newer version of the draft that are coming up until the final RFC that will be published. Just to give you a heads up, right now we are at version 20 of the draft that was released in June 2023, and we updated our model, and we can say that right now the 20th version of the draft is compliant with the security claims that were made by the IETF. Thank you for your attention. I leave you with the summary of the attacks.